Good morning, Facebook and YouTube audience. I'm Jennifer Norrie, and I'm with Beyond Brand Collective, and I am sitting here with Jen Rubinowitz, who is in Port Townsend. Hello, Jen. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you doing?
Good to see you. Good. I'm good. Happy Friday. This week is like blown by. It was Monday, then it was Friday. Kind of funny how that works. So we were just talking here about all the great things going on in Port Townsend, and today we wanted to talk about how to sell your home. But before we wrap up today, we're going to have you go over some of your favorite philanthropy efforts and things that you like to involve yourself in the community. So we'll wrap the session up today with you talking about great places to give for the holiday season. And sounds like we're getting to some of your passions and things you care about, which I love. And it's always fun to share those with people that are following you on social media so they can get to know you as a person.
Yeah.
So
I do what I do.
Yeah, I know. So what the heck is going on with selling a home? So things have shifted around in this last year and a half. So from your perspective, what's going on for sellers? It sounds like things are changing a little bit.
It's definitely still a seller's market. We're not seeing as many multiple offers as we were before, but like I'm talking, we don't have 20, we have 3 to 6. So it's definitely still a seller's market. We're still seeing things being selling for over asking, but it's not as frenetic, not as crazy.
Yeah, it's still unusual, but not as crazy, and probably as overwhelming for the seller, because I know that it's a complicated and emotional decision to sell your home. And if you've got all this flying at you, and do I go by the money or do I go by the gut that I have about this family in my home? And, oh, that's right, it's not my home anymore. And I mean, just all of that. So
yeah, it's letting go and moving on, and it's a life transition. And even though it's usually a positive move, it's still stressful.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why we have good agents that are helping you sell homes that this is not the first time they've ever done it. So this is not Jen's first rodeo, which is great. And certainly not Caldwell Banker Best Homes' first rodeo. You have such a strong leader in Karen Best and such a strong brand. And aren't you the oldest real estate brand? Is that what you educated me with one day? I know you're one of the
Caldwell Banker brand is, it was founded after the San Francisco earthquake in 1906 or 1907. You know that?
Crazy long time ago. Yeah. Wow.
But it was founded because there were so many people being taken advantage of after the earthquake, and they just didn't like the unethical dealings that they were seeing. So that's, another reason I love working with Caldwell Banker.
Yeah, I think it has such a strong brand recognition, and it's not all about that anymore. I mean, we always talk about how telling the story of a brand and who your people are and who you are as Jen Rubinowitz as an agent, and why do you sell homes and why do you love it? That's what matters. But having a strong brand behind you, and certainly to me, that represents the processes and the expertise you have around contracts and the expertise you have around monitoring a market and consulting buyers on when to jump into that market and all of that. I think that's a lot of what Caldwell represents. So tell me about, I don't want to overwhelm people with too much information. We have just, 10, 15 minutes here, but what are the top 3 things that a seller, if I'm thinking I'm ready, I want to sell my home, not sure what's going on with this COVID market, but I'm ready to move forward. What's the first thing I should do?
Well, the first thing you should do is really consider, why are you selling? Are you selling because you're scared about what's happening? Are you selling for the right reasons? So a good real estate agent is not going to just say, okay, fine, let's go. They're going to want to know why. What are your reasons? Because that also honestly fits into a lot about how you price a home.
Yeah, I can see that.
If you're in a hurry to sell for whatever reason, or if you're if you've got the benefit of just kind of taking your time, then that influences how we price a home for you.
Of course it does. You have to be in New York by Monday.
Yeah,
new job.
Be a little more aggressive on your pricing because you've got to go.
Or kids that need to be in school.
Well, we'd like to move closer to family within the next 9 months. So that drives your timing, that drives your pricing, that drives so much of it, and it also drives your stress level. Honestly,
I'm sure I can see that.
And really rushing to go.
Yeah.
I've had a
And
couple of people in the last 2 weeks that talked to me about they're relocating. And so they've got a certain date that they've got to be someplace and they need to make it happen. So
yep,
that
yep,
drives a lot about what you're doing first.
yep,
But
yep.
again, for me, it's about serving you as a home seller. And I'm going to make sure that you really are at a place where you're selling out of the right mindset
Yes, and
versus, I mean, I've talked people out of selling because they're really just operating out of fear.
which
And
always just, yeah, that's so interesting to me because I'm so used to thinking of real estate as real estate agents are some of the best salespeople I know. And from the first time I met you, you've always talked about that it's a service job to you. And certainly you make your
yeah,
living and certainly it's commission based, but to you, it's about servicing that person. And is it really servicing them to pressure them to sell their home during a time that it's not ideal? Or
right.
because you hear the reasoning is questionable, and not that you're going to tell them what to do, but you certainly are providing a lot of expertise and insights about helping them make the decision, right? So
Right.
makes
Right. It's
sense.
definitely service for me, not a sales job. You're not selling a car, you're selling your home, you know,
Yes, it's a
and
very
that's a roof
emotional,
over your head. And
a
it's,
big deal.
why are you doing this? So
Yeah.
that's the long and short answer of what's the first thing you do. You really think about, am I selling for the right reasons? Um, or am I panicking over something? So
Yeah.
I'm happy to work people through that process. The first question I ask is why? Why do you need to sell? And then the second is, what's the market like? What do I need to do to stand out from my competition?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing that we walk through is where things are selling that are comparable to that property that you have. And
Mm-hmm.
so we do kind of a competitive analysis of what's happening in the market for the last 6 months. And I try to put myself in a position like an appraiser would. We're seeing a lot of cash deals now, which makes that less of a consistent point. But
Mm-hmm.
for those that are going to be dealing with a buyer with a lender, they have to meet the appraisal guidelines. And so an appraiser generally will look at houses that have sold within a mile of that address
Mm-hmm.
and have the similar amount of bedrooms and bathrooms and the age of the home, the condition of the home. They look at all of that. So I try to take a non-emotional, non-biased look at the house and the condition and the size and all of that and look at it like an appraiser would.
So
So
you
that
can
gives you
give.
a worst case scenario of how much will a mortgage company likely approve a loan against this house. So
I was just going to ask you, why do you do that? And I think you're saying, you're giving me the business answer, but also the reason you do that is because you care about people, and it makes sense to figure out, is it a good time for them to sell this particular house, or if they fix this certain thing, would it sell for this much more, in 6 months? And you're
right,
wanting to give them good advice. And I know that when I was a seller, we made some changes I never would have even thought about that we heard about from our agent, because they know, you're an expert in the market, and wow, that extra air conditioner in the garage is going to make a huge difference in what you can sell this for, so you should do this and that. So I don't know that as a homeowner. I mean, I
yeah.
don't think of it like you do. And so we look to you to give us that advice on, is this a home that could stand some changes, or no, this will be absolutely hot in the market and you should sell it for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
understand.
in a seller's market, you're less likely to have to do a lot of repairs and a lot of painting and
Mhm.
a lot of fixing up because people are really desperate for a home. And so
Yes.
you've got a lot of competition with buyers. And so you have to look at the whole picture to know the best path forward on selling your house.
Yes. Yeah. Just what is the whole landscape of it? Yeah. I love that. And I love that you're not. I'm sure that it would be tempting to become emotional about it. I mean, you earn your living this way, and it would be easy to be drawn in by the emotions of the person selling too. Like if they're
Yeah.
excited to sell, but your gut's like, oh man, this is not the right time for this home. that would be interesting conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what's the practicality of the next? What do I do? Do I, obviously, you say you get someone to appraise the home? I've
No, I don't. I don't get someone to appraise the home. Sometimes I will, especially if it's a commercial property, a multifamily property. And
Oh,
it's
you
been
think of it as an appraiser.
yeah,
Sorry.
I look at it
Right.
as an appraiser,
Right.
just to say,
Mhm.
okay, what's the worst case um, somebody's coming in and looking at this, because basically a lender is going to say, I've got to have this appraised to know what my company will lend you against this house. So I look at it from a buyer's appraisal standpoint. A lot of
Got
that's
it.
legal. I look at it.
Yeah.
And against the competitive analysis as well. So
Yeah.
And your need on how fast you need to move. So it all
Got it.
comes into play.
Yep. And I would think, hundreds, sometimes hundreds of thousands, or a pretty decent difference in price comes to play here.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
can.
depending on what's going on. Yeah, depending on how big of a hurry am I in, and what kind of home is it, and what market, and what updates are needed, and all of
What
that.
condition? Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been hearing all through COVID with several of my real estate clients that people are not prepping homes like you used to have to. Like you just said, they're kind of just leaving that to the buyer to make the changes that usually sellers had to make, which is incredible to me.
Yeah.
It's really
And
changed.
honestly, a lot of people, the first question they'll ask is, do I need to paint? And unless there are holes in the wall and there's a ton of damage, I will hardly ever say that. I will say, let's clean. But likely a buyer's going to come in and want to paint to their specifications anyway. They might not like the color you pick, and they're going to paint anyway. And now you spent all this money that the buyer's just going to change. So,
Right. Yep.
that's all part of the negotiation too with an offer is
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't painted and the walls need to be painted, you can always give a credit or negotiate
Right.
a lower price or
Right.
whatever.
Add that
But it
in.
just depends on the circumstances and the
Yep.
condition of the house.
Yep. And it's easy to become, you're attached to your home and you want it to be perfect for that new buyer. So it's easy to do things that are unnecessary. So it's good to have an agent that's objective and just seeing
Yeah.
things like, you don't need to replace all the toilets. You don't
Right.
need to, all
Yeah.
those crazy things that I know people do. So
Yeah. And what's perfect for you, in your opinion, is going to maybe totally different than when a buyer is going to come in. They have their own opinion.
Sure.
And so, people come in and make their home their own,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And so it's natural for a buyer to come in and make some changes. So why should the seller invest and lose money
Mm-hmm.
on improvements that the buyer's going to come in and redo anyway?
Yeah. So you hire a good reputable agent who will look at your opportunity to sell objectively. You make reasonable changes to your home, or repairs, or cleaning, or whatever those things are. Kind of collaborate with your agent on that. And then what's the next thing down the road for someone wanting to sell their home?
As far as selling, then once we've improved the curb appeal and decluttered, because when you've been in your house, you kind of spread out to fill the space, and so we kind of take a simple approach where you want to make the spaces not just clean aesthetically, but you want a buyer to be able to walk into your house and picture their stuff in it, not look at your stuff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So staging it so that it's really an open kind of blank slate for a buyer walking in is important. And then we do the photographs, we do the 3D tours, because so many people start online, of course, now these days. And so I think it's important that you have a virtual tour, and ideally kind of it's almost like a video game where you can walk through yourself with a 3D tour. We do that consistently. And then marketing the property, which I love. Absolutely love marketing of it, and because that's my creative side. So you market it, and then you start showing it, and then the negotiation part comes in, the offers, and you start choosing which one to go with, and then you're negotiating with that buyer to get the best price and circumstance for you. And then we go into more of a product management type scenario where we are managing all the milestones in the contract. And then we get you to close.
It's just that simple.
And then you move on and live happily ever after.
Yeah. So how long is that process taking in the pandemic environment versus what it would take maybe 2 years ago? How is that different?
It depends. I would say we're seeing more cash deals now. So those to be competitive, a lot of folks are closing really quickly and doing some more post occupancy for the seller, because sometimes the seller can't move that fast. But competitively, the buyer goes like, hey, we're gonna buy really fast, and if you need to stay a little longer after closing, we're flexible, and so you're negotiating a post occupancy period. We're
Yeah.
seeing a lot more of that these days
And
than we did.
is post occupancy something that people put in writing, that you have an
Oh yeah,
agreement that we're closing the 1st and you're out by the 20th or whatever?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would think so. Wow, lots of details to manage.
Hmm.
So, so it is a different environment. I know that I've spoken with others in your company that have said that, given the pandemic, selling a home is definitely something you can still do and should do if it's the time. The lender opportunities have opened up a little bit because businesses are operating again in this limited environment, but they're operating. We've figured out better how to do business in
Right.
protect each other and be safe. And I know that's affected your industry like any other industry. And then you're also telling me that it's not quite as frenetic as it was mid-pandemic, which is, one of the biggest ironies I've experienced in my business is how the real estate market just absolutely boomed during the pandemic. And, people are getting 15 and 20 offers for homes. People are losing their jobs and getting kicked out of their apartments and all this crisis and losing their mortgages. But on the other hand, there were people continuing to move into the Pacific Northwest, into all our beautiful towns, and wanting to live and move. And so anyway, what I've heard is from you today is that has shifted as well, and that it's not quite as crazy to sell your home, and that you'll get more normal volume of offers, still a little bit high.
Yeah. And I would say it's in our area, at least, we haven't seen people worried about, being kicked out of their homes. I mean, we did have some protections around that, but it was more the pandemic made us think about what was important to us, and so many people wanted to move closer to where their families are.
Yeah, for sure.
We can get into the whole socioeconomic stuff, but we are a very transient community, more so than we were back in the 1800s. And so, for example, my kids are in Texas and Florida, and I'm in Washington. So, it's been tempting, and I've seen a lot of people selling their homes to move back closer to their kids.
Sure, absolutely. Life is short, right?
Yeah.
And you go through a crisis, and it pushes you through prioritizing. How do I want to spend the rest of my time that I have here, and what's important to me?
Exactly.
And it's, you definitely, if you're making a decision like that, it's another good reason to hire an agent that isn't selling a home for the first time, who can be objective with you and say, okay, I know you're really, going crazy here, but what's the best thing to do? And here's the path that I recommend. And you're certainly, again, not telling them what to do, but giving them just solid, objective advice. So, so I'm excited that it's leveling out a little bit. It's been a little bit nutty, and obviously something.
I'll be honest. I think a lot of buyers got discouraged. They didn't want to compete with 20 other people. Yep. So a lot of buyers just said, forget it. Yep. I'm just going to wait. And I try to be more encouraging to buyers, because I really believe that when the house comes on the market that's meant for you, the planets will align and the process will flow, and you will get that house. But it is hard for a buyer when they've made offers on 5 or 7 houses and they've been outbid. And so a lot of that less urgency and the fewer offers we're seeing is because some of the buyers have just gotten really discouraged.
So it's a good time to re-enter and try again, because things have leveled off a little bit.
Absolutely. And a lot of sellers also think that, we're in the winter season, this is not a good time to sell. And I don't agree with that, because now so many sellers have that attitude. You've got less competition for your house.
Sure.
And honestly, the buyers that are looking in the middle of winter are serious, because they have to buy. They want to buy, and they're not. I call them tire kickers. Sometimes in the summertime, people like to tour homes. It's nice out. Let's go look at homes this weekend. In the winter, you don't have that, because often it's rainy, it's cold, it's not fun. So the buyers that are looking are real, true, 100% ready to buy. So
but in an overstimulated market, it's a good time to do this in the winter, because you're getting more normalcy as far as process goes. And people have full-time jobs and families and kids in school, and selling a home, I'm sure, just adds to your task list, right? I know it did for me. how nice would it be to do that in sort of a down season instead of having to deal with, the other. And so, yeah, it makes sense to me what you're saying, that during the pandemic, winter time is not such a bad time to look at selling your home, for sure.
Yeah.
So I know we wanted to wrap up today by talking about some of your favorite philanthropy efforts and things that you like to support in your community. You've made it so clear to me that holidays are so much less about receiving and so much more about giving, and you find a lot of meaning in the holidays with where can I find the person that's most in need, or the pet that needs to be adopted, or the person that needs the pet that needs to be adopted. Those kind of things bring you joy. So what organizations do you kind of have an eye on? If you want, as you share, I can put some dates and times in the we have this little fun ticker. So
you do? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
the Tri-Area Food Bank in Jefferson County is someone that we support every year on an ongoing basis. And they're doing a turkey drive for Thanksgiving, of course. And of course that'll proceed on into Christmas. It's amazing to me how much hunger we still have in our country.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah. So they're doing a turkey drive, and you can just drop off checks. We've done a collection at the office, and we're going to be getting that. So we do that every single year. We all year long have been doing the free little pantry at the food co-op in Port Townsend. And I think you've probably seen the little libraries that are set up in neighborhoods where you can just borrow a book.
Yeah.
It's kind of that same
what a fun concept. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a little grocery store.
Yes.
And it's outside the food co-op downtown. And you just put food in to share. Obviously something that's not perishable, a canned good, or ramen noodles, or a bottle of water, just things like that
great
people
concept.
who are hungry can just stop and grab. And so that's something that we've done all year long, and we're going to continue into 2022. But it's amazing how many food challenged, hungry people are out there. So we just put stuff in it, and whoever needs it goes and grabs it. And sometimes we have to fill it up every single day. It's just kind of sad.
Yes, I have another client that supports an organization called Farmer Frog, and Farmer Frog is educating me about, we have so many services, but people can't access the services and the food that they need, like seniors that are homebound, or people that can't get out for whatever reason, or people that are isolated because of COVID. You think, why do we need this organization that's serving millions of people in Washington State? And it's because, yes, we have services, but there's a gap, right? And I just scratch my head every time, and I know you do too. It's like, how can there be, so many homeless around us without what the basic needs of life? And a lot of it's mental health issues. It's the connection. We're not connecting with all the people that are in need. So
I think that's absolutely true. And I think one of the things with the free little pantry is it's there 7x24. It's never locked. It's not intimidating. You don't have to go inside a building. You just open that little door and grab some food, and you're done. It's not threatening at all.
Yeah. That's super cool. What a fun. Yeah. It just makes so much sense to use those little library, that concept, the way that you're talking about. I love that. So I know you've also talked about the Center Valley Animal Rescue, and they have an open house coming up. Do you have a date?
Yeah, I love the Center Valley Animal Rescue. They and they're not just cats and dogs. They have horses, they have cows, they have goats, they have sheep, they have rabbits. They do. I don't think they turn anything away. And they also do some wildlife habitat type stuff. So I really love them. And so they're having an open house on December 4th. It's the first one they've had since COVID. So it's going to be lovely. It's on Center Valley Road in Quilcene. And it's just this little farm, and they've got all these wonderful animals that they help. And so, one thing I didn't even think about with Halloween just over, what do you do with your pumpkin? Well, guess what? Their goats and their sheep and their livestock love to chomp on those pumpkins. So feel free to drop those off. Bring them to my office. I'll take them to them.
Who would have thought? It was such a great idea. Because I just saw a lady put this beautiful pumpkin that looked brand new in the dumpster, and I thought,
Oh, yeah.
That's just crazy. There's got to be a place for that. If you're not a pumpkin pie, chef, there's got to be a place for all that.
Yeah.
The
So
gourds as well. I
I
wonder
didn't
if they
even think about it, but I got their newsletter and announcing the open house. And I said, hey, how can I help? And he said, yeah, get the word out. And, people just drop off pumpkins. That's one thing that they can do.
Yes. Wow.
Waste not, whatnot. It's
Yes.
just,
Yeah. Such an abundance and yet such a lack, right? It's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jen. It's always good to speak with you. And thanks for kind of walking us through the seller process, how to sell your home. If you're interested in working with Jen, I replaced all the information with our giving. So you want to give them your phone number and email address real quick? I can add it there too.
Yeah. 360-774-0130. Call, text anytime. Or Jen sells port-to-port.com.
.com. Very good. Thanks, Jen. We'll be talking to you again.
All
Take
right.
care.
See you later.